In our Chapter 103 review, we discussed Piccolo's brief role at the end, but it's time that we focus on his greater role for the Son family. The joke about him being Gohan's real father, it honestly got old many years ago, but underestimating his role and purpose would be a genuine mistake. So, let's look at how the dynamic has worked over the years, and let's try to pinpoint some more interesting examples. Right, from the very beginning, Piccolo Jr. was defined by his family. Initially, his only reason to exist was to carry out his father's legacy, something that he seemed very, very committed to. He was the tool of revenge and the extension of King Piccolo's will. Or at least, that's what he had thought. In an exclusive anime moment in episode 133, we do see him saving a mother and a child from debris falling from a clock tower for no apparent reason. While he does show a quite extensive amount of savagery and cruelty toward Goku, he does allow Krillin, to exit the fight and not torment him further. He doesn't really attack people unprovoked, and it's mostly focused on his enemies, even though his fixation over the victory makes him disregard the safety of the audience at the World Martial Arts Tournament. So collateral damage, it's not something he considers. It was more of a passive thing than an active, hateful gesture, you could say if he wanted to be diplomatic. His main beef seems to be with, understandably, Goku and Kami, since that's the duo that had beef with his father. Next, we have the brief reluctant ally Piccolo period. We can also add the dead zone in here as well, as while it is a movie, it is quite good at presenting some of Big Green's relationships with the rest of the characters. It really helps you get to know him. And obviously, he still tried to one-up the likes of Goku. And while he isn't opposed to allying himself with his greatest enemy in terms of self-preservation, there is still that whole world domination angle involved. Now, funnily enough, when you start looking back, you do have to wonder if this was maybe some kind of coping mechanism. Now, of course, I'm sure it wasn't part of Toriyama's grand plan at the time, but having read so much about this character, you do have to wonder if his heart was at all in the mission brought down by his father, especially after he fulfilled his revenge and killed both Goku and Raditz. This is never really explored, but he doesn't even have time to dwell on his triumph, as he knows that as the strongest warrior remaining, he has to prepare Gohan. Gohan, who rather quickly changes from a nuisance that he is compelled to train, to a valuable companion who he enjoys spending time with, and indeed a friend. And while he is famously harsh toward the boy, and his training might be seen at times as cruel, he does make sure that he will not hurt the boy too much. Obviously, he does this for pragmatic reasons that are obvious at first. However, his pupil demonstrates kindness, a concept that was previously unfamiliar to him since he never really was taught it. You may say that Goku letting him go was the first sampling of this, but honestly, we all know that our protagonist does what he does. I would say it's more mercy than care. He just wanted to fight him again is all, hoping that he could get better. There was a tinge of selfishness involved. Now, during the Saiyan saga, he obviously knew that he had become more grumpy than evil, something that seemed to have become obvious that he wasn't quite the same as his father. Maybe there was some good in him after all, and he was proved right. He was good, rather quickly in the grand scheme of things, in the space of maybe a few years. Now, when the Saiyans did arrive, he was a valuable ally, and he did not hesitate in sacrificing himself for the boy. Something that he would have never done just a few years ago, or even just a year ago, when he fought Goku and Raditz. Which seems like a huge change if you forget that Piccolo, at that time, was only 8 years old when he fought Raditz, with 12 months being quite a substantial portion of his life. You gotta put that in perspective, my friend. We often see him as an adult with how well developed his mind is, but honestly, seeing how long-lived Namekians are, and they can be, this might be the period where they're the most susceptible to outside change. It's like when you're a kid and a year to you feels like an unthinkable amount of time. And then the older you get, the faster it passes. The perception of time for you changes. And I do think that the same was true for Piccolo. He spent about a ninth of his life with this kid in the forest. The first being that had shown him kindness is getting to know who he was all about. At that moment, a connection had begun to form. And with all that said and done, Piccolo had some time to cool off in the other world before being called to Namek, which had invoked emotions in him that he didn't even know that he had. Regaining his roots made him whole, or well, more whole, and he wasn't afraid to even take a big bad second form Freezy Pops himself. The change in his character was signaled not only by how he reacted toward Gohan, but also how he reacted toward Goku. Before Namek explodes and he is teleported to Earth with the rest of them, he would rather aid Son Goku in fighting, showing that he had gained massive amounts of respect towards the guy, or more likely, that respect that was always there but he just didn't know it, maybe it was muffled by his inherited hatred, it was there now for everybody to see. Now after Goku gets back and everyone learns about the whole Android deal, that's when the whole family unit starts properly. And of course, Chi-Chi isn't initially too happy about the Namekians staying with them, but the sole fact that she even agreed to it means that she sort of changed her outlook on him and at least acknowledged his importance to both the training as well as Gohan's life. It doesn't stop her from making the two of them get their driver's licenses though, as she needs someone to help out with the chores, but you know, the sole fact that she even proposes this idea makes you think that Piccolo is no longer just some kind of monster toward her, but some kind of annoying relative, a cousin on Goku's side that she doesn't particularly get on with, definitely part of Goku's side of the family. In fact, this is actually kind of funny, but I think that Piccolo takes the place that Raditz should have been taking, should things have gone differently. We've never considered it that way, but Piccolo establishes a connection with both Gohan and Goku like some kind of uncle figure rather than a father figure. We often talk about how the younger of the two interacts with Big Green, but we rarely focus on what the relationship with his father looks like. And honestly, it's quite unique, as Piccolo is a confidant of sorts. Yeah, he kinda cheats with his super hearing, but many times, he's the first one to hear about Goku's plans, and the one to bounce ideas off of. Not even Krillin or Vegeta gets this treatment very often. Those two do get along in a very, very weird way. And Piccolo is not a being of many words, but he gets Goku talking, which is quite obvious when you rewatch Dragon Ball Z and some portions of Super. He's also one of the most trusted members of the Z Fighters, that one's for sure. Anyway, the Android Saga is now the big one for Piccolo. We don't really need to tell you what happens, but finally, after discovering the threat of Cell, our Big Green is able to persuade his other half to fuse with him so they can return to their original state. And while there is a small resurfacing of his whole Demon King shtick when Krillin suggests that maybe he's one of the good ones today, it's clear that this time it's 100% a coping mechanism. Probably because he doesn't feel very useful at the moment. But still, he and Kami were able to find their agreement and become one entity. And this is where one of the most important traits of Piccolo becomes even more apparent: his immense sense of responsibility. It was always kind of there, but after fusing with the Guardian, it became his defining trait. So much so that even though he is quickly dethroned from the position of the Dragon Team's strongest member, he keeps being the voice of reason regardless. Also, he creates a matching gi for Gohan, which is a very adorable scene, and further proof of the link between the two. As if we needed any more of that. He is much more socially and emotionally intelligent, angrily pointing out flaws in Goku's plans regarding Gohan, and being greatly opposed to the harm that was happening to his pupil. Moreover, he's one of the very few people who were able to get through to adult Goku. While as a kid the Saiyan was willing to learn the tricks of the trade, he had become visibly more stubborn in his older years, and it was Piccolo's harsh words that managed to open his eyes to some aspects of his relationship with his son that he hadn't really considered before. Was that a flaw? Yeah. Was it proof that Goku was a bad father? No. It just shows how different mentally and culturally he is from the rest of his family. Piccolo learned that concept from them firsthand. Other than the brief experience with the old couple who cared for his egg, they were the closest he had to those kinds of interactions. And considering that the Namekian is wiser than his Saiyan friend, he caught on to that much quicker. We don't know much about his feelings in regards to Goku's demise, but seeing how quickly he re-entered the 25th World Martial Arts Tournament, I bet you he was quite happy with the prospect of being able to spar with his old friend yet again. Now the Buu Saga isn't too kind for Big Green, as he becomes rather traumatized by Shin's presence, of all people, turned into stone, his successful attack on Barbary is completely negated, and he's forced to babysit Goten and Trunks. Still though, he had a very good conversation with Vegeta, where the two managed to find some kind of connection, a common ground regarding redemption and sacrifice. He's also the first to notice changes in Majin Buu being caused by Mr. Satan's kindness, something that he's very receptive toward, having remembered his own life story. Also, he gets a very important role to stall and negotiate with Super Buu, which buys everyone some very valuable time, and yields less than perfect results though, as it ends with the deaths of many people. But quite honestly, it was probably going to end that way anyway, but he sort of managed to give people a little bit of hope. And oh yeah, we forgot that he gets eaten and blown up afterwards, but this happens to many, many people in that saga, so it's not particularly special to Piccolo, but still, in a very funny way, he sees the humor in Mr. Satan actually, growing up to become the role of Earth's hero. You know, when he asked for the Spirit Ball energy, surely knowing what went down. Now after Z is over, Piccolo solidifies his role in Gohan's life. He is closely monitoring him and Videl, ensuring their well-being. The poor guy attended their wedding and blinked for the photo, and it still irritates him to this day. But we think that this image of him is perfectly in character. Also, I do wonder, was he Gohan's best man? Probably, right? It's never stated, but you could imagine that would be the case. Also, he's seen with Chi-Chi taking groceries to Videl and Gohan's place on the pretense that he always ate for free at Goku's home, so he had to help. Now, I bet they did that more often. At this point, they were more than comfortable with this sort of presence, even with the Namekian being a little grumpy about the mundanity of the situation. Now, very quickly, he also became a very close figure to Pan, babysitting her when the parents were busy, and seeing how much Videl trusts him as superhero, yeah, he is fully integrated into that family unit, no question. Obviously, that doesn't stop him from taking a bullet for Gohan here or there, and giving a motivational speech every now and again whenever a threat is nearby to get the son of Goku training again. But he's there, of course, to help him prepare should the situation require it. Now, we won't be giving you another summary of Superhero, not after 2023 at least, which almost ruined the experience for everybody. But as much as Piccolo seems like an errand boy for Gohan these days, and Videl, he does seem to genuinely enjoy this position. Now, seeing his behavior in Chapter 103 is pretty good proof of that. He cares not only about Gohan's strength, but also about the relationships between the family and he. He is the one who helps keep it together. He knows how important it is for Pan to interact with her grandpa. He sees through Gohan's excuses, and he's willing to help whether Chi-Chi or Videl required that from him or not. He has this grumpy exterior that's not changed, but overall, he takes a lot of those duties on his own shoulders. He has embraced the role. Fighting is still an important part of his overall routine, yes, but keeping those people together, especially Goku and Gohan, is also extremely important to him. Well, that and the fact that he is the best partner in crime for Pan right now, not even close. It's easy to see why he found kinship with them, however. Despite the obvious kindness he received, even from an almost angry Chi-Chi, he stands out as a unique individual, having found a home away from home on Earth. At least these days, he does have Dende to visit and discuss stuff Namekian related, I guess. He's also the most responsible person in the family, without being a hothead like Chi-Chi is. And those things just came to him organically. Now, as we said in one of our old discussions, considering his beginnings, he's become very, very humble. And this level of humility is shown in his belief that Gohan has to save the day. But fame and bragging rights aren't what Piccolo wanted. Getting stronger is just part of his routine, not a burning passion like with the Saiyans. He's pragmatic, seeing how many strong things tend to emerge that he knows that he can't stop. And you know, seeing how quickly humans and Saiyans would deteriorate when compared to him, I can see him being the only one to actually keep up with Black Frieza in the long run, considering if he would like to wait out the clock. That is of course a chilling and grim prospect, yes, and we really don't know what the future will be. Would he still be around for Pan's potential kids? Will he become the Son family mentor for generations to come? Well, we may never know the answer to that, but It will never cease to amaze me that the intended weapon of the demon King Piccolo had found its purpose in the mundanity of everyday life, in simple acts of kindness and caring for kids, and doing tasks, chores. Before Superhero was released, we were slightly worried about the Big Green getting sidelined and going stale. However, that's not the case now for Big Green. He is now the foundation of the Son family, someone whom either one of them can always lean on, Goku or Gohan. Now, whilst Vegeta and Krillin are best friends of Goku, Piccolo's connection is different, like someone who has found a family he never had. And honestly, this is also good for our protagonist. Piccolo is like a brother that the Saiyan never had a chance to bond with due to them being, well, on complete opposite ends of a barricade. And it's easier that way, since both of them care deeply for Earth and its inhabitants, despite some occasional selfish streaks from Goku's part. Now, Piccolo isn't a substitute for Goku, no. He's the one who keeps them together. Again, we've said this a lot of times about Piccolo, but it's worth repeating again. If godfathers were a thing, he would be one for Gohan. And you know what? The most important thing for us is that after many ups and downs, fights with villains, fusions, and a lot of really messed up stuff that he's had to endure, the Big Green finally seems to be happy and at a place where he belongs. And yeah, it's a really nice, comfortable thought. Something to aspire to. The demon who wanted to dominate became the one that was happy to serve. There is an important lesson in that, and the reason why we love this character so much. And we bet that's why Toriyama loved him too. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.